Hey there, Griff Hamlin here from Blues Guitar Unleashed. Welcome and thanks for joining me in what is going to be a very different kind of video. Normally, I would start the video by sort of playing the thing or the idea that we are going to talk about today. But the problem is that today I can't play this yet. Not that it is beyond my ability. I haven't learned it, and it's very fast. As you can see, there's an awful lot of notes going on. And so at about that tempo, 1 and 2 and 3, that's just a lot of stuff going by. So I kind of started messing with this yesterday and starting to learn it. And I actually did okay. And I believe that the process that I went through would be extremely valuable to you. So I'm basically going to show you right from the beginning how I approach this and how I start to work through things, most importantly, using the timing. I can't learn this. There's no way I'm ever going to be able to play this if I can't map it out in time. And I'm a firm believer that that's pretty much the same for everybody. And I realize not everybody has to count. I know some people have sort of a built-in sense of rhythm. That's fantastic. I'm going to lean on my own built-in sense of rhythm quite a bit. And you will have to lean on yours as well. Everybody does have a little bit, but we also have to be able to sort of break this down into manageable pieces. And that's kind of what I want to show you how to do. So I'm going to switch over, and this is going to kind of have a little bit of a live feeling because, like I said, I'm just kind of doing this, as I go. So I'm just going to show you kind of how I would approach this. So what I'm going to do here is do a little drawing and show you kind of how I'm looking at this, okay? So this is in 12/8 time. I know you can't tell that. It's obviously it's written up above. It doesn't get written on every staff, but it's in 12/8 time, which means that my, fundamental breakdown of notes is the eighth note. There's 12 eighth notes per measure. And so like here's 1, 2, these guys here don't really count. I'm not gonna really talk about that. So this is also 3. I mean, it's a rake. It's just a technique. So we're gonna basically ignore it. Then these together will be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this one here is 9, this eighth note, but notice that they're connected because it's a bend. Okay, and then this is 10, and this is 11, and this is 12. Those are the 12 eighth notes in the measure, and then continuing on, that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These kind of both are 8, and then they extend to 9. And if you can't read that, all these notational concerns, obviously that's kind of a different issue. I'm not going to totally break down like how to read eighth notes and sixteenths and all that kind of stuff. All you have to know is that if an eighth note gets, sort of one count like this, then 2 16th notes equals 1 eighth note. 3 16ths in a triplet group like that is the equivalent of 1 eighth note. Okay, so in this case, we have the 16th and the dotted eighth. The dotted eighth is an eighth attached to a 16th. So anyway, that's how I know what I know about this. This is a quarter note, so that's actually 2 eighth notes. 11 and 12 should be 10 and 11. So this is actually 10 and 11, and this is 12. So all of that is just to prove to you that there are, in fact, 12 eighth notes worth of material in each bar. But this is actually kind of important because now, if I was going to, let's say, tap my foot and say that every tap is an eighth note, I know what stuff to play on that tap. Okay? And in fact, I would actually kind of hum this first. So the first thing I do, I'm going to switch colors, is I would do like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, you know, just kind of count. And then I know that this thing is still going to go on for the next one. Tap, 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 right? So I'm just kind of looking at what I'm playing. I'm not actually playing anything yet. You could even kind of hum this, right? Like I could, let me take away some of those dots and squiggles. I don't want to make this too messy for you. But I could even hum this. It's like da 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 da, so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm literally just humming the things that go by. And you might think that's kind of silly, but I can assure you that if you can't hum it, you know, or da-da-da, or whatever you want to call it, if you can't somehow, you know, vocalize that a little bit or do something with that to make it clear how things are broken down, you're probably not going to be able to play it. And truth be told, I believe this is kind of the most important step, and I think it's the step that most everybody just sort of bails on. So that's not good. Now, you could do something, if you really wanted to get carried away with this, if you were really struggling to read all of this, you could double everything. So for example, you could change it to like 3/4 time and make the eighth notes be quarter notes, and there's only 3 of them in a measure, and then you just write it like this would be a quarter note, and this that'd be a quarter note, that'd be a half note, because it's basically that's basically a whole note. And then these two guys together, they would each be eighth notes, and these would be eighth notes, and these would be eighth notes, and that would be the whole measure. Okay, you can do that if that, you know, for some reason like looks better to you. Don't be afraid. You know, you're gonna end up in the same place. Okay, that's not how I would do it, but you got to do what works for you. Always, you got to do what works for you. Okay, so now is when I will start to pick up my guitar. So notice that I've broke it all down. Now, truth be told, in my case, I don't need to write this part. I can sight read the notation well enough that I don't actually have to draw little arcs and squares and brackets around things. Sometimes it'll get funky enough that I will. Okay, there are times that I will do this, but I wouldn't usually do it over the entire thing. Stuff like, you know, these, in particular, stuff like this, where it's just, you know, pairs of 16th notes. I don't need to write that down. Okay, but that's okay. You know, again, do what works for you based on where you are now. That's what's important. Okay, so now I'm going to finally grab my guitar. Okay, side note, I'm not using my typical 11 rack. So some of you may notice that the tone's a little bit different. I'm actually using my Kemper, a profile by Michael Britt, the Gamma, I think it's the Gamma amp. It's kind of like a steel string singer type of thing, dumbly type of thing. Okay, so let me see if I can split this out for you. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to play the stuff as it goes by. Okay, so I'm going to start with my first finger doing this half step bend. So eighth note, then that's the second eighth note, the third eighth note. I know it shows that rake there. I'm going to kind of ignore that for now. Then I have an eighth note, does that, then an eighth note, does that. Now 3, 5. Okay, now I got 4 things. This is number 7. Then number 8. Number 9, it's still there. Number 10, it comes back and then goes on to the 3. That might be hard to read, but you notice that little 6 in parentheses. That's, I'll say, the return back. Now I have 11, then I have 12. All right? Doesn't sound like anything yet. I totally get that. It doesn't sound like anything yet. It's going to take a while, but we'll get there. So 1, 2, 3, sorry, 1, second, the third, and I'm only counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so you know where I am on the page. Normally, I would be like 1, 1, 1. I don't know that I would actually count to 12. I might try to do 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, but in this case, I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so that what I say, you can match up to what you see on the screen. So 1, 2, I'm ignoring that rake on 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I'm not playing it super even yet. You know, we'll get there. And I'm just doing one measure, like we'll add more later. So let's see if I can do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, starting to get there. Now, that's probably going to be a quicker process for me than it is for you. Yesterday when I was doing this, I think that was about as fast as I got. What I just did took me about a half an hour. Okay, it might take, this is a really hard lick. Okay, so if you're fairly new to soloing in general and this is something that you're trying to bite off, it could take you a couple of days of pretty dedicated practice just to start to get it even at this ridiculously slow tempo. We're not concentrating on beats really, like whether it's 1 and 2 and like I'm not concentrating on what the downbeats are. I'm not concentrating on any of that. I'm just trying to get my fingers moving, but get them moving and playing the right notes within the rhythmic framework that we're working with. I don't want to just randomly have a bunch of notes come out. That's not the goal. We still got to keep it in time. Okay, so I'm gonna start to make it a little bit more legit here in a minute. So let me go through this a couple more times, because like I said, I really don't know this very well. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Not bad. Now, of course, you know, when I'm doing it on my own, I would continue on, and I would do the next measure as well. Somehow I didn't write that 12 at the end, did I? Maybe I did, and it got lost in my undos. Okay, so if I go slow on this, 1, 2, and, or however you want to call it, it's just 3 things that happen in count 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And again, I'm counting to 12 so that you can follow where I am on the page. All right. So let's say that I've done that, and again, I'm going to stick to this one for the time being, so that you can actually see it. I don't know why that's so small all of a sudden. I'll leave it here. You don't need to necessarily see all of the top part. So 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And you kind of get, you start to get a little bit better at it. So eventually you'll get to where that starts to become reasonably comfortable. Okay, now this is where I would start to kind of bring my metronome in. Once you're sort of consistent at a fairly slow tempo, you could start to bring a metronome in to start to do the counting for you. The danger is bringing in the metronome too early when you're not doing your own counting. You're not keeping your own time. If you can't keep your own time at a slow pace, the metronome can't keep time for you. And that's kind of the biggie. That's something that I run into a lot as I see people like, oh, I got to practice with a metronome. Well, no, you're not playing it in time, so the metronome isn't going to help. It's just going to be beeping or clicking over there, but it isn't going to help you. Okay, so the metronome can help you keep things even, and it can help you sort of measure the time so you can speed it up or slow it down. We know how fast we're going. But it isn't going to make you play those 2 notes within that space, or those 3 notes within that space. Only you can do that. You get the idea. Okay, so here's how I'm going to approach this. Now, I have a fairly fancy metronome app. Okay, and it's called Pro Metronome. I think it cost a whopping $2.99 or something on the App Store. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to make, I'm setting it to be 12/8 time. So if I'm going to just do that and say go. 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Moderately useful. And that's, by the way, it says an 8th note is 110. So if you think about it, okay, so if I want 60 beats per measure, 1, 2, 3, where every third, or yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, like 1, 4, you get it. I want those to be 60. So I want a dotted quarter note to equal 60. So if a dotted quarter note equals 60, that times 3, right? Is that right? Anyway, like 240, that seems a lot. But maybe that's right. I'm just kind of curious. If I go super fast, or would it be, 180. Sorry, my math is bad. Times 3, not 4. So at 180, 2, 3, 4. So that would be, I'll say full speed. Okay? So I'm going to go down to about half of that. Right? I'm in no hurry. So 90, 1 and 2 and 3. Okay? Super, super mellow. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do is I can set different tones. So I'm going to set a different tone for the first beat. So it's going to be 1 and 2 is going to be a slightly different tone. And then 3 and then 4 are all going to be slightly different tones. 1 and 3 and 4 and okay? Now, why do I go to all that trouble? Well, because that's the feel of the music, okay? And having that different tone on the first beat is this little extra audible cue for me that I'm in the right place, that I'm where I think I am. I can't tell you how many times I have accidentally, like, taken a part that's supposed to go dot 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 and accidentally played dot 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 dot. You kind of you're in this mode of going back and forth between like 2 notes per beat or 3 notes per beat on this. There's the stuff that's like 4, 5, and 6 here are 2 things per beat, but then 7 is 4 things per beat, and then you get here to 12 and there's 3 things per beat, and as you go down, down here. Like 4, there's only 1 thing on that beat. 5, there's 2 things. 6, there's 3 things. 7, there's 3 things. But then 8, there's 2 things. And then 9, I hold it like... So we're going, back and forth between all this different stuff. It's really easy to get that messed up. So knowing when I get to 1, the top of the form, having that different tone really helps me. It's just a nice guidepost that, yes, I am where I think I am. And yes, it does help. All right. So let me try it now. Hopefully you can kind of see that. I know it's a little bit big for this, but I think it'll work out. So 2, 3, I'll let it go by 4, go by one time. 3 and 4 and 1. And there I'm at, okay? So I did it. Cool. If I can do it again, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, and now I'm doing the reg. And it should be that I hear that beat 1 tone right when I get done, and I am. And in fact, I'm going ahead and I'm just gonna add that first. See, notice the first note of the next bar is that pair of 3s. I'm gonna go ahead and add that to as I practice it. I always like to overlap by at least one note, as much as I can remember. Sometimes even a beat, but at least a little bit, I like to go ahead and cross that bar line. So in this case, what I'll do is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna memorize, right? So if I play this little bit, okay, so I'm just gonna kind of get that little bit under my fingers, okay, because I'm not gonna be able to turn the page fast enough. So now I can try the whole thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and cool, right? So if I can do it a couple of times, 2 or 3 times at that pace, let's start to pick it up a little bit. So I went from 90, I'm gonna go to 110. That's kind of a large jump. Let's see if that works out. 4 and 1, 3. I think I did the part that I was supposed to have memorized. I think I did wrong, but that's okay. Let's try it again. And 3 and 4 and 1. I think I got it. Let's do it again. Okay, I think I got it. So, and I'm using things like, you know, that alternate tone on beat 1 to help me know, and on beats 2, 3, and 4. Let's try it at 120. So now remember, divided by 3, this is 40. So I'm getting close to full speed. And 2, 3, and 4, and 1. And I kept going a little bit, but you get the idea. Okay, so if I can do it at 120, let's bring it up to 130. 2, 3, 4, and 1. Okay? And believe me, my ear is very, very, very much grabbing on. You'll notice that I've got the metronome really loud. I have no idea how loud this is going to come out on the video, but the metronome is really loud because I want to hear every one of those demarcated downbeats. I really want to hear those because I got to make sure every time those come around that I'm where I'm supposed to be. But notice that I've now taken this lick that's just this massive mess of notes. Like there's no way I would ever be able to sight read that. I mean, it's crazy. This is just a ridiculous number of notes. But when I break it down into these small pieces and I play the small pieces little by little by little by little, pretty soon it starts to turn into music. And it does take a while, I won't lie. On something this challenging, I've been working on, I spent a long time. Like I said, I spent like 30 or 45 minutes last night just on that. And I'm not playing at full speed yet. And it's not that there's stuff in there that it's not that my fingers won't do it. Okay, it's that I didn't write that lick. Okay, it didn't come out of me. So it's always more difficult to learn to make your fingers do something that maybe isn't their natural tendency. I would never play this exactly like this naturally. So I'm having to, both memorize. You have to memorize the notes. Your fingers are never going to do this without having it effectively memorized, okay? So it's not, when we get this up to speed, it's not like I'll be able to sight read it. It's no way that's going to work. I'm going to have it in here, and I'm going to have to look at my hands and make sure everything's doing what it's supposed to do. And if I had to, if it was really complicated, like if this is really complicated for you, you could do just one beat. You could set your metronome to do 3/8 time or 3/4 time if you want to double stuff. You could do literally one beat at a time. I would suggest doing a beat plus one, but you can do it however you want. And do what you need to do to make that so that you can get your hands around it. It doesn't have to be, 2 or 3 or 4 measures worth. It could be one beat's worth. Okay, so like I said, I know this is kind of a really odd video, and hopefully it kind of gives you some insight into how I actually use, I'll say, my own method to learn stuff. This is how I do it. There's no way I would ever be able to learn that just playing it with no time, no way to, know like how many notes do I play right now? Do I just play them all? They would just all sound like a smear. For lack of a better word, I just play them all. They're not all the same. They don't all last the same amount of time. So I don't want to just play them that way. But if I didn't know, like I'm supposed to do 2 notes on this click and 2 notes on this click and 3 notes on this click, and if I didn't know that, that's what my tendency would be to do. Just play them all. Just play them in order. Never going to come out right. It's going to take a really, really long time to do that. So I hope this is helpful to you. And again, I know this is not like super, like, here's how to play this cool thing. I know it's not like that. But if you've struggled trying to learn licks or trying to learn phrases that are really complex. Now, truth be told, one thing you should keep in mind too is the notation. This is, I'm, not to toot my own horn, but this is good notation. I wrote this out. So I've delineated the beats properly. I'm using notation that is a little bit more reasonable to count. If you're downloading stuff off of the internet and it's like, Guitar Pro or PowerTab or ASCII text or whatever, you're going to have some challenges. I encourage you to stick to stuff that is professionally written because it tends to be much easier to read. But it's not it's not that you can't work through something like that. It's just might take a little bit more work up front. Okay? So I hope you dig the video. I hope this is somewhat helpful to you. That's it. I'm Griff Hamlin from Blues Guitar Unleashed. Thanks for joining me. Again, if you got guitar playing friends, you think this might be something that's useful to them, I hope you'll share it. I'm sure I'm going to get all kinds of comments about how counting is silly for playing the blues and you can't count, you just got to feel it. Yeah, I hope that works for you. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for most people I teach. So you can keep those comments to yourself and we'll all get along just fine. All right, take care. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.